what do you call this? A cluster drop stitch, maybe? Hey guys, so a while back I created a shawl and I used a stitch in that shawl that I called a drop stitch. I do not know the name of that stitch. So for this video purpose, I'll just call it a cluster drop stitch. I do not know what the name is. I've looked into other stitches. It reminds me of a spike stitch or a drop stitch, so that's what I'm going to call it. But basically I had a person would reach out to me and ask me if I could do a close-up version of that stitch because they saw it in the video obviously and they couldn't catch on there. And I can understand that because the video was done in like a variegated yarn, so maybe it wasn't as easy to see. So what I'm going to do is I created a small swatch of a granny striped pattern, which is essentially the same thing I used in the shawl, and I'm going to show how to do the clustered drop stitch. So that is what I'm calling this, a clustered drop stitch or spike stitch, whatever. But basically you create it by doing 3 of the same stitches in the same space, but one of those stitches you're going to drop down to the row before it and complete the stitch. It's a lot of words, but I'm going to show you on camera what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use a completely contrasting color just so you can see what I'm doing. This very first one that I'm going to complete is just a regular cluster stitch. So basically you do 3 double crochets in the open cluster space. So in that open space, you're going to do 3 double crochets. There's nothing to it. That's just the pattern, okay? But when I get to the drop stitch, I'll show you how I do that, okay? So here's the next space over. We have the 3 colors here. So with this blue color, I'm going to do 1 double crochet in the cluster space, just straight into that open space. You get this typically when you're doing granny squares or something like that. The next double crochet, I'm going to put it in the stitch below. So in that gray cluster of 3, I'm going to put that second double crochet. So you can see here, you see how it's going through the gray, the upper part of the gray stitch? And then I'm going to continue doing the double crochet stitch. So you want to pull it up a little bit so that it's to the same height as your other stitch. And then you're going to complete doing the double crochet. So yarn over, pull through the top 2, yarn over, pull through the bottom 2 loops. Okay. Now the third double crochet, because remember you do 3 in the same space, I'm putting it right back in the open space. I'm not going through any more stitches in the gray row. I'm going straight into the open space like I did with the first double crochet. Okay, so that kind of gathers the fabric together. So instead of it being a gapey space of the hole being right there, you're pulling it together. So I'll show you again how it looks. Yarn over, insert the crochet hook into the space, and you're going to do a double crochet stitch. That's nothing different. The second one, again, you're going into the gray, into the stitch from the previous row. In this case, it's gray. You see there? Pull back through just like you're doing a double crochet. There's nothing different than just doing a double crochet. The only thing that you're doing differently is you're doing it in the stitch below instead of in that open space, okay? All right, and then you just complete the last double crochet the same way you did the first double crochet in that open space. So you see how that looks? It just kind of gathers it together. And I've done not just this project that I'm showing you here on the screen, the Horizon Shawl, which you can find on my channel, but I've done a cowl this way and I've done another shawl this way. Okay, I'll show you one more time here. And that was real time, just so you can see that it works the same way, the same speed. It doesn't stop the flow. It's just you're picking up the stitch from the previous row. That actually rhymed. Okay, sorry. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna show it one more time in slow motion just so that you can catch on. If you didn't catch on before, guys. Yeah, just watch it here. So this is the drop stitch here, okay? I'm trying to really show it. I don't know if you can catch it. I'm just going through that gray stitch from the previous row, through the stitch from the previous row. You see it there? Hope this helps. All right. And then you just do the same thing with the first stitch. And then guys, when you get to the next row and you're doing this, you'll still have the space. You'll still have the cluster space because we're still doing 3 crochets in the same spot. Just keep going into the next row. So anyway, this is what it looks like when I've done a little bit more. I hope that kind of helps a little bit. So, and then I completed out the row so you can kind of see what it looks like as compared to if I were just to do a granny stitch or 3 stitches in the same space. When you do it that way, you end up with the holes. When you do it as the drop stitch or the cluster drop stitch, it gathers. So that's the shawl that the gentleman or the viewer was looking at. Here is another shawl that I completed very similar to the Horizon shawl. And then I also did the cowl, which was that red thing that you saw earlier. Anyway, so that's it, guys. The patterns for everything that I've shown here should be on either my website or my YouTube channel here, so you can check those out, try to create on your own. But that's it. This is my cluster drop stitch or the drop stitch or the hike, whatever you want to call it. That's it, guys. I hope this was helpful in some way. You guys have a wonderful day. If you have any questions about anything, please, just like this gentleman did, reach out to me, and if I can do something to help, I will. I will see you all later. Be blessed. Bye.